from, what you've brought us through, and Lord God, eventually what you're going to bring us to. So, Father, we love you and we praise you and we lift you up and give you glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Once again, welcome to Tuesday. And again, we are going right back to the main scripture of this week, which is Psalms 119, verse 105, where David said, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." We need a light. You know, when I was a kid down south and there was all darkness everywhere at night and it was really, really dark and I would be so afraid. But I would look at the out and near my well, our well, and there was a one big bright light that shined every night. And when I had to go to the well, I would look at that light and I would have my dog Big Track with me and I would be feeding him bread to walk with me to the well. And you know what? That eased my fears. And I'm here to tell you today that just like David said, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That word gives hope to men. And it says in Romans 15:4, for whatsoever things were written before time were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scripture might have hope. When there's darkness, if you don't know Jesus, your hope departs in the dark. But if you know Jesus, you will be steadfast in what David said. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. That word gives hope to men that you might have hope. And fear not, because when Jesus is in your life, there is light. He comes to bring the light, to lead you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. We need to come out of darkness. That darkness can be ignorance, it can be drugs, it can be the lies that the enemy tell, but we need to know that greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. The word, that light, it helps to relate human experience as a warning. 1 Corinthians 10:11 says, now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the end of the world are come. We need to know that all these things that are happening, they can be related to human experience as a warning. Walking in the darkness, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to bump into something, and if you're not careful, you're going to walk straight into hell. That's why we need the light, that we might see where we're going, and that we might know that there is a way out of this stuff. But you got to call on Jesus, my brothers and sisters. You got to know of the blood that he shed for you, that you might be able to come back home, because the God that we serve has already made a way. We just have to understand that, and we have to know that that word gives knowledge of eternal life. Don't you want it? Don't you want to walk in the light as he is in the light? Don't you want to see as he sees and understands that, you know, there is a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS. That's spelled Jesus, y'all.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey, folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865 457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Hi, everybody. Me and the mayor, we're kind of starting the show without y'all. I hope everybody out there is having a great day. This is Ask Your Neighbor, and we are happy to have Mayor Terry Frank with us this morning. Hi, Miss Mayor. How are you?
Good morning, Ron. How are you doing?
Good, and it's good to have you here. I enjoy when you come up. I know we are somewhat short for time today.
Yes.
Writing grant. What are you finishing your grant up for?
So this is for Lost Bottom Park and Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, along with TVA, DOE, are basically, you look at the damage that occurred in City of Oak Ridge and the surrounding reservation, from back in the day when there were contaminants that we didn't really know their impact. So what happened is a settlement was, or an agreement was reached, and $42 million is available for grants that they're going to be giving out over the next couple, maybe 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And so the first round of grants has gone out, and they've released $10 million, and they had a pre-application phase. And County Commission and the Conservation Board both were on board with an application for Lost Bottom Park. So we've got a 2-phase that is there on the Clinch. And there's a group there years ago, Melton Hill Lake Users Association. They do a lot of cleanup, and they've been out at that park a lot. They asked, is there a way you can improve the amenities there? The boat ramp isn't sufficient. There's no pier. There's no dock. There's nowhere to park, really. There's no delineated parking. And so this grant came available. You had to do a pre-application. We did that. From there, they choose applicants to do the full application.
Okay.
So today is the deadline we got invited to do the full application. Today's the deadline. So we're feverishly working on finishing that up.
You got to have it by 4?
Yes, yes. So, but I feel really good about it. They had a mandatory online meeting where we meet with the trustees who are going to make the decision on this grant. They did say they liked our application. Of course, that was one reason we were chosen for the full application. They gave me a few more things to work on to try to beef up in the full application. So fingers crossed, prayers said that it comes through. Commission is doing the match on that, and it would be really nice to provide that to the community,
cool.
Beef that up. And then, we've got the Gibbs Ferry, across on the other side of the river,
yes,
where we're finally getting off the ground. There's so much when you do that one's with Federal Highway, and anything that touches the transportation side, you've got multiple steps that you've got to take to get these things into the transportation plans and all of this. You've got to get permissions and goes through TDOT. So this month on the full commission agenda, we've got the contract with a design firm there. So we'll be able to kick off all the environmental work. And cool. So, most of the stuff, whether it's sidewalks or parks, it's that environmental processing, NEPA, they call it. A lot of these permits and environmental assessments is the longest part of the project. If you can once we get to construction,
then you're good.
Then our timeline is actually, about 6 months.
Yeah.
But we just got to get to that. If we can get that environmental done.
Red tape, paperwork, and a lot of it.
Yeah.
Huh?
So they'll announce, we get that submitted today. They'll announce that. They said what they told me was they wanted to announce it pretty quickly. So we should know in the next couple of months if we're a winner.
Do we have an amount we're asking for, or do they just grant whatever they see fit to grant?
So we're asking for we're going to match 227,000, and then I can't remember the total. I think it's like 555,000 or 560,000 is the total project amount, and they would supply the remaining portion.
Okay.
And then we're looking at 2 phases. So the first phase, we're applying with this grant because it's about enhancing the recreational components along the river.
Sure.
So more people to visit, more people to fish, more people to kayak, more people to launch their boats. And then we're going to restore and prevent, runoff and that kind of stuff. We're going to, we're working with some community groups to take out some of the invasive plant species, which I kind of learned something in that process. I was even telling my husband, I was driving to Oak Ridge, and there's all those mimosa. Did you know those are an invasive species, a plant species?
I did
which
not.
Makes sense if you start looking. Then they're like all growing along the bank, and
I didn't know that though.
Yeah, so we're working some. Part of this project is getting commitments from people to volunteer time and resources to also put. So the construction is that amount, but then we're going to have all these other partners that are going to be putting forward some resources to help us accomplish it and get it done.
That's great. Recreation is always good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're very familiar with Campbell County and surroundings up there, but they're out on North Lake. There's a bridge. It's called the White Bridge. I grew up jumping off it, but it was just used to be a little bridge and where you could drop your boat in. Nothing, no gravel, no nothing. Man, they have made that into a campground, a parking lot. They've taken and put sand down, made it like a beach like you used to have at the dam. Really, really pretty. Campbell County, the county did that. So I've seen where they've taken some of these areas and really made them nice. It'd be nice if we could do that too.
Yes, absolutely.
Really cool. Well, let me ask you about this. Let's start with the budget. Did the budget are we running a deficit budget this year?
Yes, it's a little over $1 million deficit.
And is there a chance that ends up not being a deficit if sales tax or whatever? Are there any expectations that it's possible not to be a deficit?
So, one of the things, Ron, I'm going to go back years ago. If you look at, there's different theories on this. So if you have your budget, you've got all the departments submitting their budget requests. Years ago, what we looked at was what is your rollover? And by rollover, I'm talking about all the departments, what are their unspent funds that roll back into your general fund balance?
Gotcha.
And there's kind of 2 thoughts. There's some that want everything budgeted to even zero. Each budget down to the penny that is approved by commission matches down to the penny the revenues that come in.
Gotcha.
Or that you're projecting, and those projections are supposed to be based on actuals. You can't
just pull it out.
You can't go, we expect we're going to do really well this year and put in extra money so that you can spend extra money. You can't do that.
Gotcha.
So years ago, through budget committee, we said, okay, let's look at what are the 5-year averages of unspent funds of the rollover. And then we can feel comfortable having a deficit budget because we know we're trending. We've got this 5-year trend of these amounts are unspent. And so it won't create a revenue situation for the county. And so that has kind of been the trend is instead of going, okay, here are all the requests that come in. We've got a $200,000 deficit. Instead of going back to all the departments and saying each department needs to cut X percent in order to get us back to zero. Instead, the county has taken the posture that, okay, we're comfortable. This is our unspent funds. We're comfortable that money is going to be there.
Okay.
And, I would have to get this for you. I don't know what the 5-year average is right now, so I don't know what $1 million makes me a little anxious. I know we've been running that, but still the habit in the past was let's take a percentage of, you want to be this is me and my nature. You want to be the most conservative with that. So you don't want to take the whole rollover and say,
spend it.
Yeah, we're comfortable spending that. You want to just take a percentage of it, say maybe 20% or something like that. And so I don't foresee an issue, although $1 million is not really what I'm comfortable with, but it's a process.
You were able to use that and give the employees all a $1,500 raise. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
That's a positive thing.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
I know.
And that, it's $1,500. And then when they get raises, then it also triggers retirement, Social Security, Medicare. So there is an extra cost when you just look at the $1,500. Then you have to carry that out to all the other costs associated with increasing, including workman's comp. That's one of the things we look at. Just a salary increase isn't just about the salary only. Then your work comp is based on a percentage of your salary, and so as salaries increase, then you have other costs that do increase. Which that's part of the problem. It's part of this process.
We're constantly growing, and all and so budget grows too. I want to ask you about this too. We'll stay with the budget for just a moment. When we project extra dollars like that, if it doesn't come in, do we just take it out of what we've got in reserve in the general fund to fund it?
Yes, that's why you really do not want to fund something that is an ongoing expense, a recurring expense.
Because you'd be dipping in every time.
Yes, and then that's how you find yourself. You and I talked about 2011 when there was a spending freeze and the unassigned fund balance was less than $150,000. That's what happens.
Yes.
So, and I will say, on the taking a percentage of the rollover and being comfortable not budgeting down to zero, one of the benefits of that, Ron, is let's talk about human nature. If you tell all of the departments, all the all the elected officials, everyone, okay, we're going to cut this. What you saw historically was a trend of, and you see this in D.C., if I don't spend every dime in my budget, they're going to take it from me.
Yeah, that's the fear of some.
And you get then you get stockpiled supplies, paper, maybe things that wouldn't be needed. You maybe some brash decisions because you're down to the last 30 days and you're just going to create something to spend.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's just human nature. And again, we see it play out in D.C. That's what they do.
Yes.
To justify their budget, they have to spend it.
Yes.
If you do it this way, they don't have to. Now
they don't have to look for reasons.
Yes.
Because they've got the funding for what they need.
Correct. And then and we can show this, from budget analysis. Your rollover increases because they feel comfortable that they have the funds that they need. Now, of course, there are times that you do have to cut. And there are times that we've done that. There's times that we've gone back to departments and officials and said, we need you to take 10% out. We need you to take 1% out. We need you to take 5%. So I don't want listeners to think that we don't do that either. And I do know there's several members of the budget committee right now that were not comfortable with $1 million, and they're already saying, all right, this next budget season, we've got to clamp down a bit. We need to analyze the expenditures a little bit more, and do they really need, or there's some areas we can find savings, efficiencies. So I have heard that talk already.
That's good.
So
I know that you don't have anything to do with reassessment. I know the state does that, and I've talked to Johnny, a couple of times. And in fact, he's offered to come on. He's been on the phone with me and talk about that. But I was talking to him about this the other day. I know we're not allowed to make any more money on a reassessment than we did before, except for improvements. And I asked this question. He was going to check on it, but for instance, Aspire Park. That was a fly ash field a couple of years ago. It didn't have a high value on the books. Today, it's got a multi-million-dollar restaurant on it. It's a a $40 million investment of a park, that has to increase our property tax base. 278 homes up there near the Ford store. They've got a number of them, the homes already built, a number more to build. That has to increase our property tax base more than, I know we can't make more off the assessment.
Correct.
But that was empty farmland 2 years ago, or fly ash land 2 years ago. Just things like that seem like, you just look at that, a couple hundred new homes. I think there's new homes being built back behind the Walgreens down by the interstate, new infrastructure there. I know there's some new infrastructure going in at the Glen Alpine subdivision back there. That should raise our property tax collection without raising our taxes, just because there's more stuff. Is there a possibility that funds any lack that we have?
Yeah. So every year, the property assessor works with the planning department. Planning department sends permits up to the property assessor. The property assessor, goes out, monitors the progress. I think now they're going to do a lot of stuff aerial. They put in place that, and you might want to get Johnny on to talk about that. So they don't necessarily have to tramp around people's property, but every year they're putting that new growth, not just during reappraisal. So, this is one of the things about budgeting. If you're responsible and you're growing, there are inflationary costs to government. There are spikes and peaks on, whether it's fuel cost or your wages. You want your wages to grow. The cost of goods we've seen during, the last several years has gone through, major inflationary, some of it's monetary inflation and some of it's actual cost of goods. But your growth should cover that. If you're really growing, then you'll have extra funds to even do, you need more deputies to cover the growth in your community. You need more ambulances to cover the growth in your community.
Sure.
So it should be evening out. And, when you get a lot of tax increases or when you are exceeding your rate of growth, or you have some big issues that happen, say you've got a landfill and you get dinged and you've got some multi-million-dollar remediation that you've got to do.
Sure.
But otherwise, your growth should take care of all the new things that you want to do. The road, you need more paving, you get more people here, you get more houses, more schools. So there should be it's a balancing act.
I brought it up because I think, people worry, especially with the reappraisal, that their taxes are going to go up. And I bring it up to say a lot of these really good things that we've got coming, whether it's a park or housing or whatever, when they're on the private rolls, can fund these raises and this other stuff that we want to do without us having to pay more property tax, with the rate going down and staying the same. It's because a lot of people, they hear deficit and they see what their house is now appraised at, and they're like, how in the world can my house be 3 times more valuable? And we had to spend $1 million that we don't have. But like I said, the new infrastructure seems like it would offset all of that and more.
Well, and the reappraisal process, I'm not going to pretend to be any kind of expert on it at all. I mean, that's, sometimes it takes me talking with Johnny several times to kind of understand. Actually, Johnny brought in for Director Holbrook and I, Gabe Looney with CTAS, who's kind of an expert on this, to, you have to be walked through it every once in a while because, there are a lot of factors that the state is using. But Ron, it's easy to wrap your mind around when you understand it's based on sales. So like my house, I remember what I paid for it. And in 1998, and it was $150,000. And now it says my home is worth 400 and some, and I'm like, what? But then I go, well, and and it's creep up over the.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, I've got 1.3 acres on Charles Severs Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
And I bet if I put the sign in the yard, I bet I probably could sell it for that.
Sure.
And so it's not just this theoretical value that people are placing on it. It's actually based on similar property sales.
Sure.
And so if you've got farmland and you're going to appraise the next parcel of farmland, they're going to do a comparison. Well, what did these 3 farm parcels sell for?
Yes.
And that's how it ends up on the spreadsheet that way. And, some people will probably see maybe a decrease in their they try to equalize it, so it shouldn't be major impacts. And this is where it gets complicated, and I say, see Johnny. He shows me this, curve, and you're trying to get to 1, and it's, you don't want a big peak and all of this stuff. Some people may see their property tax go down just a little. Some people may see them go up some because they're in an area of the county that is in high demand with a lot of sales.
Yes.
For instance, on the lake.
Yes.
Andersonville area. The value is going to go up a lot, but they're going to try to equalize that. But it's going to balance from maybe an area where the value is not, has, in comparison to all the rest of the parcels in the county, the value's kind of dropped a little. It may not drop in real dollars, but comparatively to the whole county,
yes,
it may. And so, we're looking at our property tax for the county, and I should have brought this with me. Our property tax rate is like 262
right now. Yes, ma'am.
And I can't remember the other decimals. Well, now it's 1.50. I can't remember the rest, like 367. I can't remember the other, carrying that out.
Not hardly in half, but close.
Yeah. So, for county property, City of Clinton, Oak Ridge, it's $1.40. In the county, you do have to add in the rural high school debt service and the rural elementary school debt service, and that puts you at the 150. So we're down from 262 to 150. So if that can help people see that this isn't about Anderson County trying to pull a fast one,
sure,
or any other county, because we're all required to reappraise. It's based on land value.
So people can look at their value, their taxed value, and say, well, paying 2.62, I paid $1,000. And at 1.5, I'll be paying X number, 1,000 or 940 or whatever, or 1,200, something like that.
Yes.
So they can look at that and figure it out. Once, all in all, budget-wise, it sounds like that you're pretty comfortable with where we're going, what we're doing, what we've got coming in. What about sales tax-wise? I remember I had a number of debates with a number of people back when they were getting ready to start the internet sales tax.
Yeah.
Tim Isbell and I. Both of us felt like we saw a pretty big increase in that. I based it just on the business that I did and the business that my companies did and stuff like that. I thought, that people have to be similar to me. I'm a middle-class guy. So if I'm spending this much money, surely they are. And that tax to the city and that was pretty big increase, wasn't it, when it hit?
It absolutely was. And so, this goes back to the internet sales tax has got a very long history. You had some of your, big boys in the market were already complying with the collection of sales tax. They had the software, the staff, the systems to be able to do that. You had a lot of legal wrangling over the requirement to do that. And there was a big case, Wayfair retailer was, I think, one of the lead names on some of that litigation. It finally landed that retailers do have to, states can require that, okay? The state of Tennessee went about it in different levels. If you do so much business, and I don't know these numbers, I mean, this has been years ago that, I kept up with this. You do so much, you're required to collect the internet sales tax for whatever point of sale you're selling to. Then they've lowered that over time so that we have received more. But there was something secondary going on here. When the state collected it, if it came to Anderson County, for instance, really the major cities were getting
the municipalities were getting the money.
Oak Ridge was, getting it.
Yes.
If you're in unincorporated, say you're my mom down in Marlow, well, her mailing address is Clinton, and so, the city would get that.
Gotcha.
Well, what the state of Tennessee did, and this is something that the Mayor's Association actually worked on, was getting the sales tax to the actual point of sale. So if you are in unincorporated Anderson County, then Anderson County gets that sales tax. If you're in the city of Clinton, it comes to Ron Meredith's house, the city of Clinton gets it. Norris, same thing. And that really helped a lot of small towns and the unincorporated counties.
And that continues to grow, doesn't it?
It does. It's kind of stabilized. And sales tax is one of those things we've got to keep in mind too. I mean, you have big projects like the UPF project, for instance.
Okay.
They're finalizing construction. Some of these expenditures, we see with these big industrial projects come in, we pick up some sales tax as part of those programs. So some of that, you'll see maybe some peaks or some spikes, but we are staying steadily. We did have massive windfall. And you can see this, for instance, just a few years ago, the highway department, I'll use this as an example. They were collecting they get a portion of the sales tax. They were collecting about $300,000 plus. And then they were up to like $900,000 and $1 million in just a couple of years.
Yes.
But that stayed steady. It's not like this continued, now they're at 1.4 million. I mean, we're just barely incremental growth. We need a little more commercial development,
And that'll grow when we get that.
Yes.
That's good. So all in all, once again, you sound like you're comfortable and happy with the budget and feel like that, we're going to be just fine.
Yes. I can always go. I can always go through my wish list, and but government is. I'm one voice.
Yeah.
There's 16 commissioners. Then there's all of the elected officials, and so then there's a finance committee, and so everything is about negotiation and compromise and finding middle ground. So there are some things that. I would like to do in terms of, I guess, can we do some things a little more efficiently? Would we have more funds available for, amenities for the public and improved infrastructure, more paving, money for pavement, things like that. But for the most part, yes, I feel good.
You and I have had this conversation, and I know this is something you're working diligently on. Talk a little bit about the animal shelter, what we're trying to build. I was talking to Sheriff Barker, and we were talking about something that the DA did. And I said, you understand that everybody knows the sheriff. Not everybody pays attention to the DA, So if you're doing something for the DA, and I know it's for the DA, it's for the DA, but other people see it as, you're going to catch flack. It's the same thing with the mayor. They don't know the budget committee. They probably don't even know all 16 commissioners, but they know you.
Yes.
So when things are good, yay. When things are questionable, then you're in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
With the animal shelter, I know just from conversations that you and I have had over the years that, it's something that you're working on.
Yes.
You've been working on
yes.
it. And people the grants and the just all of it that goes into it. But update us to that, because sometimes those people are very passionate people. Sometimes too passionate. But I just want you to kind of bring us up to date with that. And I want people to know what we're doing across the river, because it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so we have property. Last night, the Clinton Planning Commission met, and I appeared there with the architect. We had our site plan approved, received unanimous approval last night.
Yay.
So now we're going to be able to file that with the Register of Deeds, get that plat plan or that site plan registered. From there, we will get our permit, and then we will be able to go to bid. I did get notice from USDA that once we have our permit, we are cleared for takeoff. We are cleared to go to bid.
That's awesome.
So, one of the things about the USDA process is it's been a very long process because it's federal money, and they have a lot of forms, a lot of requirements, as you can imagine. They're loaning federal funds, and everything from environmental to historic to tribal outreach on the property. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into it. So we're there. I mean, as soon as we have the permit, they've asked us to notify USDA, and then we'll go to bid. One of the things, I guess, you look at both Claxton Elementary School and the shelter, there has, not been a desire, and I would not advocate for a tax increase to do some borrowing to fund these projects.
Sure.
So both of these, we have sufficient funds and debt service to be able to handle.
That's a big deal.
And, I mean, we're getting ready to go, let's see, July 24th, we'll go to market on $10 million of the Claxton Elementary School project. And we pushed that off. We've been kind of waiting for some of the rates to come down. I think we made a wise decision, Robbie and myself and Dr. Parrott and our Cumberland Securities that does the, financial paperwork. We have pushed that off a little bit and watched Lauderdale County go to market. We watched Loudoun County go to market. We're probably looking at 4.5% on that. But again, the schools have funds in place, and then they have some debt in the future that comes off that will be able to fund that. So ultimately, there will be $20 million borrowed, but we won't have to look at that second round of borrowing for them until next year. So they've phased that in. That saves interest.
Sure.
Over time. So, we're good with that. And the same thing with this animal shelter.
Tell us about the facility. What size? I mean, I know, but I don't think that the general public knows what you're
for the shelter.
Yes, the animal shelter.
So, oh gosh.
I thought it was like a 10,000 square foot.
So the building itself, office, classroom. We've got a lobby with some, that you can put cats and adoptables out there. The offices, you can have visitation and they fill out adoption paperwork. The grooming room. We hope to, and depending on where the bids come in, we hope to finish out the surgery center, but we want to be able to do the spay neuter on site and then also offer that to the public.
That's awesome.
For free or low cost. And so we're going to look to maybe a partnership. Like right now we have a partnership with LMU where they take so many animals a year. They completely vet them. If they have disease, they treat the disease, and then they facilitate adoption too. And sometimes their students actually adopt them. We want to do something like that. So that portion is about 10,000 square feet. And then the kennel space that's outside is an additional, I can't remember if it's, I think it's like 3,000, they're indoor-outdoor runs.
And that's right adjacent to the Clinton Dog Park, right?
Yes,
so,
correct.
I mean, what a perfect, a perfect place for it. I know that and I think it's misunderstandings that you've come under fire about the animal shelter and stuff like that. And I think people just don't realize, how the hot dogs are made, all the stuff that goes into getting to a 10,000 square foot shelter. With that said, have you, obviously the answer is going to be yes to this, but have you set and budgeted to have the employees to, know what it's going to cost us to operate that and feel comfortable that under the budgets that we've got forward, we're going to be able to build it, man it,
Well, I haven't put a pencil to what our exact savings will be in kind of doing away with some of the processes where we're spread out everywhere. I mean, from, being out of Blockhouse Valley to having to get septic pumped and, a lot of storing off-site. There are a lot of things that we're doing that there's a cost of doing that I've probably not done a very good job of, getting that in front of commission. What's the estimated savings there?
But it is a savings.
Yes. And
it's not a deficit, it's a savings.
Yes. And, a lot of, so even like we've got PetSmart, we have a PetSmart partnership. Last year we adopted over 200 cats there, and we have a full-time employee there, and we hope to maintain that. But then with a central location, we hope, now we can plug in, have a little leeway to plug in volunteers there, bring that staff member back to the shelter. If anyone's visited, it's not a place where there's a lot of room to maneuver.
Sure.
There's a lot of juggling and employee juggling that goes on just because of the size. I track a lot of other shelters. So just a little over a week ago, Sevier County, who just built a new shelter, is completely over capacity on triple.
We will be too.
Yes, triple, alarm. Last night, Young Williams is extremely over capacity. I'm hoping, and my hope and wish is that we give our employees a little leeway and a little breathing room, because right now it's so mission critical that it's, 12 runs and 20 cat cages. And then we have, the adoptable space, of course, in Oak Ridge for the cats. But give them a little breathing room. We've got to get in front of it. I mean, my ultimate goal is to put the shelter out of business.
Sure.
The building's got a 40-year plus lifespan. I would love to be out of business and in a place where, up north, we're shipping animals up north because they don't have, full shelters. And we have got to get a handle on that in the state of Tennessee.
I agree. It's an education process, and it's spay and neutering. What you were just talking about, if we could offer that for very low cost.
Yeah.
There are vouchers available right now, though.
Yes.
Is it the state or is it the county or a combination of both provide?
So the Humane Society, I know they make some available. They work with the shelter. Sarge does a lot of spay neutering. I think, there are different rescue organizations out there as well. I don't know if they offer the services. I know that I've seen some ACR, help with food or medical bills. So there are a lot of helping hands out there.
I just think that if we could make it a little more convenient, a little more public, a little more accessible for people to get out there and get their animals fixed, because I've got a dog at my house at this very minute, and he's going to stay, Peanut, that my wife's aunt brought to my house because she went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and there was a lady outside with a box of puppies, and she just couldn't help it.
Yeah.
And so she comes to my house. She comes to my house with two of them, trying to get us to take two. Understand, I've already got Emma and Zoe. I've already got two, but we took one. So, people just have a heart, but there's a huge need for people to, the lady that was giving them away couldn't keep them. It wasn't that she didn't like them. She just couldn't take care of that many animals. And I understand that. I do.
Yes.
And so if we could just make it easier and get more publicity out about it, I would hope people would do that. And I've offered this, and I'll offer it again. I've offered it to the different organizations and to the county. I would love for them to send me a dog and a cat picture every week and let me feature the adoptable animal of the week. I'd put it on our website. We could put it here. Maybe have some fun with it. But I'm happy to do that if it would help it all.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Ron. Yes.
No, it's my pleasure to do it. So if you let me know who to contact or have them contact me, and we'll do it.
We'll do it.
I ask you this. I already know the answer to this, but I'll ask you just because. You're running for another term.
I am, yes.
You know, I've told you this, you know this, and I've said this on the radio. When people ask me to run for something, you know, I always take it as a compliment, but I tell them I need to be called, feel like I'm called to do it. When I ran for mayor, it was to try and continue the projects that Mayor Shootman was doing.
Right.
And to Mayor Burton's credit, although it's taken a while, they're doing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Slowly but surely. That dog park, we were who got that land over there. That's now the dog park for a park. So that's happening. But I don't want to just. I never have wanted to put myself out and run just to run.
Yeah.
So I say that to say this: in your next term, what are you looking for? What is your calling keeping you doing this?
Oh gosh, well, in the scheme of things, government takes a very long time to accomplish projects, as you know. So there are things that I want to finish up. I want to finish up building a new shelter. You know, I was looking at, Ron, the very first Conservation Board report to the state of Tennessee. Every year, the Conservation Board's required to file an annual report. County has 7 parks. All of those parks are mentioned in this 1963 report. And one of the things that was kind of interesting, Lost Bottom Park, I think there was, I don't know when that area developed out there, but they mentioned just a gravel road being out there. And the board members at that time, 1962, the county had a referendum to do a conservation board to look, you know, to have these amenities and manage them. And they identified Lost Bottom as an area that would be one of our premier parks, and it had a lot of potential for growth that they believed in the future. Well, it's to 2025, and we're still working on that. And, you know, I have plenty of faults, Ron. I'm not perfect. I mess up, you know. I mess up technically. I mess up, you know, spiritually sometimes. I mess up, you know, with interactions sometimes. But I do believe that I have ability to, you know, convene meetings and put the right people at the table and see all sides. And I look at the Glen Alpine Convenience Center as one example of that.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, there was back and forth between the county and the city, and there were even lawsuits and settlement documents and all of those things. And, you know, I said, well, why don't we have a joint meeting? You know,
get everybody around the table.
And so we had the Solid Waste Board. We had some county commissioners. We had the city of Clinton. And we had a concept plan, and we rolled it out. And then the city said, well, we don't like it. And there was some exchange, you know, some tense exchange from solid waste and a couple of commissioners and some from the city. And that's all part of it. That's good. We get it out on the table.
Sure.
And, you know, at that meeting, everyone said, okay, now what? We've cleared the air. What do we want to do? Let's all come up with a solution. And the city said, we'll help you locate some property. The commission said, how about you come to the meetings and we're going to look for some property. So that's what happened. Some property was identified that the county commission liked. I remember Mayor Burton being in the audience. I can't remember who else from the city might have been there. And there was this collaborative effort we'll help you get there.
Yes.
And we solved that problem that had been out there. I talked to Roger Howe one time, and he said, Mayor, I think I ran across something, and I cannot remember the exact date, Ron, but I want to say he said 1982, where this first started being discussed. Wow. And
Glen Alpine School was still there when we were dumping garbage down there at 82. Yes. It was a problem then. Yeah.
And those are the things, you know, I like that. I like doing that for my county and for the cities. And so I think there's a lot more really still to be done. I know we've been doing some strategic planning, which, you know, I think if we're that's relatively new. Kind of the newer commissioners have been doing that. I would really love to get some stuff in place where, long after there's a Mayor Frank and certain commissioners and some of the elected officials that are there, there's a process in place so that we don't fall back into traps of, big tax increases. I mean, Ron, the reality is we have been a county that's ranked at the top for property tax burden on our citizens.
I know.
And so I'm not going to say that we're where we need to be. We've got more work to do, and I want to continue that. And some of that's going to take a little bit more strategic planning instead of crisis management. And again, I'm just one person, but it's working with different individuals. And so there are still some things that, I think we need to do, and I really enjoy working. I mean, I'm somebody that, not always, but I'll work on the weekends.
Sure.
I'll work on the holidays.
When it's necessary.
When it's necessary, yeah.
I've called you after hours about stuff before. Yeah. I know you do. I know you answer. I worked with Dave Bolin. I worked with Myron when he was in, worked with Rex when he was in. I've worked with you through your tenure. And I can say this, I'm going to make a point. I remember when you rolled back our taxes, 1/2 cent.
Yeah.
And
it was a
Was it a 1/2 cent or a 1/10 of a cent?
Yeah, it was a
decrease.
Third or something. I can't remember
how much it was, but I remember it lowered our.
Yes.
And I was very happy about that. And and you and I spoke about this just a little bit last time you were here, and I have advocated that I felt like that the county ought to give us back that 2 cents that we've been taking to look for industrial property. And I've talked to a couple commissioners, and some agree, and some say, no, it's not possible, and I don't know. But is there ever an opportunity? And I know running a deficit budget, that's certainly not something that people are going to want to talk about.
Yeah.
But is there ever a situation that you see in your next term, where there could be, where we could lower our property taxes?
One of the things that Commissioner Mays has really had an eye on our properties and excess properties. And, if you look at Anderson County and you go to some other counties and you see some of their facilities and you look at our facilities, you're like, what? Why don't we've had one of the higher tax rates. Where's our money? Where is it? What's to show for it? And
I can tell you. Putting roofs on buildings in Oak Ridge that that are too old to re-roof, that we need to get rid of. I can tell you where we've wasted money, but I won't. Go ahead.
So, some of that, I think we could do that, Ron, if we more efficiently manage some of these operations.
Have you thought about selling some of that excess property?
So we did have a big, one of the things, and I'm not going to get into the whys, but I had never been able to do just a public auction of, properties owned by the county from delinquent tax auction. And I never, I'm just one of those people that I never want to see us take property. I mean, I want to help people get their taxes paid,
sure.
And it's just really against my nature. But the county has had properties that have been in their possession for years. And we did have a public auction where we collected over $400,000. I can't remember the exact number. It was something like $447,000. A lot of that went to pay back taxes. So the county was the recipient of all of these back taxes. If there was taxes owed to the city, for instance, in that, they got paid as well. And then we collected 200, and I can't remember the number, Ron. I think it's 227,000. Well, we put that back, back into Anderson County government. It's in a code right now. Robbie will be making that, the commission authorized this to put it in a capital projects code.
Sure.
But, there are other facilities where it's going to take, let's look at this, and from an efficiency standpoint. Now, we did get a grant for a new emergency operations center. We've got an old building that is down kind of right across the courthouse there, right in the heart of Clinton.
And Mr. Kidwell was here with David here last month
Okay.
talking about that. That's fantastic.
And that's a partnership with the city of Clinton. It's going to meet needs for the city residents, for the industrial park. It'll have a fire station on one side, and it'll have the county EOC on the other. So you got shared costs, joint, operation, wonderful partnership, and that benefits the taxpayer and provides, services to the taxpayer. But we get that building out of there. We had an old evidence building there. There's a mobile home there that the schools don't use anymore. I'd love to sell that off.
Sure.
And somebody could put something, there in downtown
and put it on
Clinton
tax rolls.
that's of value. Put it on the tax rolls. Be some, there are some other things like that I would love to do. And I know the Commissioner Mays has talked about that. Like, how do we get this done? That's very important to him. So, yeah, I mean, you have to, and I'll bring this up, and I know there's not universal agreement on this, and maybe I shouldn't bring it up, but I look at the position of the law director.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it did get cut this year, and so they did cut one position out, and that budget was reduced. But we were up, around $500,000 for a county of 80,000 people. And
I don't think any other county our size has that.
No.
In my research.
No.
I didn't think so.
And, that's one of those things. Can we contract this out?
We did before.
And, or can you get a couple of, this is one of the ideas that's been thrown out. In Knox County, I think the sheriff department has, because they're your number one, nothing against the sheriff. It's just a fact of crime and punishment.
Yeah,
it's your number one liability.
Yeah.
You're housing inmates, you're arresting people, you have all of these human-to-human interactions out in the field. You've got all of these training requirements. In Knoxville, they have, a lower paid attorney specifically for the sheriff, and then you have, maybe general counsel advisor for everyone else.
So that would move some of that liability into the sheriff's budget if you could you're talking about maybe getting an attorney that would work with the sheriff's department?
Yeah, that's
offset
just
some of it. Yeah,
that's just one idea. I mean,
Sure.
or you could do, Blount County, they have, well, let me just tell you what Anderson County Schools do. They
Okay.
have, God rest his soul, but Sal is an example. I'll use Sal.
Yes.
They had a contract with Sal, and he is paid a retainer fee for up to a certain number of hours. Say you have some issue that gets woolly and you get in the weeds, and it's not. Most of our liability cases are handled by our insurance company.
Yes.
But say it's something that's going to be more legally intensive locally, well, then you could pay that person extra, or you bring in, law is just like medicine anymore. It's all specialty fields.
Yes.
So you have say you got a Family Medical Leave Act case. It might not be your in-house attorney, just on retainer that you're using. You may hire an expert in FMLA law. And I just believe we can do it for a lot less.
With that being the way that our law director position is set up, how if you decided, could you legally unwind that?
You have to change the Private Act.
Okay.
And so
who does that? Commission?
The commission does that.
Commission can change the Private Act?
Yes. And so you can, there's general law, you can revert to general law, which is basically, and this is what Blount County does. The mayor, and I think they're still with the same attorney that they put in place maybe 8 or 10 years ago, but the mayor put out a call for services, did like a request for qualification and a proposal for cost. And the mayor picked out 3, worked with the county commission. Commission said, okay, yeah, we like this one.
Okay.
And they had a contract, and I need to get their current contract. But when I first talked to Mayor Mitchell about this years ago, it was like about $120,000, and it's hourly. But the attorney they're paying their own staff, they've got their own phone, their own copier.
Sure.
They're taking care of their own health insurance, and the county's paying hourly. And I know we have a lot of demands. I know that, but I just think it can be done for a lot less. And that's not an indictment of the personalities. And I've explained this to Mr. Brooks. I tried unsuccessfully with Jay, and it's not personal. Is there a better way to do it that's more cost effective? And the nature itself of the way the Private Act is written is also written with all these conflicts in place. And you're a businessman with multi arms of your business. You've had to deal with attorneys.
Oh, yeah.
They have their rules where they can't, wear two hats.
Yeah.
And the way our Private Act is actually structured, it has got conflicts all within there.
Oh, and we're wearing 5 or 6 different hats.
Yes.
And in times past, it seems like sometimes having so many different irons in the fire, we've lost our way. We've lost a number of lawsuits. We've had to pay out in some cases, or our insurance has had to pay.
Yes.
In some cases, I think could have possibly been avoided with a little more foresight, looking down the road a little bit.
And if you hire somebody, it's very easily to terminate them.
Well, sure.
Under the current system, there's all this other, you develop relationships, and, sometimes relationships, you turn a blind eye if it's not working. And the Private Act is the way it's set up, it's 2/3 of the commission.
Well, first it's the legal advisory board. They have to first bring it.
Yes.
And I remember very distinctly speaking to heads of departments that said, I do not want to bear the responsibility when I go knock on doors for re-election that I was one of the people that helped fire the county attorney.
Yes.
It just, because then that has nothing to do with collecting taxes or getting my tags.
Yeah.
But yet Jeff and Gary and all those people had to set on that. And so it just seemed to me that was a system set up to fail. In other words, make the county attorney bulletproof.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that negatively. It might have been a good idea when it happened. I never liked it. I've never liked a Private Act. I've always thought it should either be farmed out, like you're talking about, or elected. But that's just wrong.
I agree. I can remember, and, on and off over the years, I had attended commission meetings. I can remember going up there and fighting a tax increase. And I talked, during the break with Ricky Rose at the time. And the change to the Private Act back in the day, I was at a commission meeting, and I can remember being out in the hall talking to Jim Vines.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was county attorney Dave Clark. And I said, this is going to be the worst mistake. We do not need to do this. You're really making a super official instead of, here's this person, and nothing against any personality or person.
I understand.
They have all the knowledge, and this is where I'm talking about conflict. They're representing different parties. And so how does that play out in terms of what's the best legal decision or protection for the county?
Well, I had asked, what if an official feels wronged by the county and they want to press suit against the county? Who do you represent? The official is, as the clerk and master or whoever, is having an issue with maybe something going on in HR. Who does the county attorney represent, HR or the clerk? And so, you see in those instances where it could give rise to really complicated things, you know. And I'm smarter people than me have to figure it out. But
well, I think back on, Jay, and God rest his soul too, and we've mentioned two that are no longer with us, but I think one of the things about the way the position is structured too, our county commissioners, I always tell like my department heads, they're the boss. If they need something, let's get back in touch with them. The discretion lies with them. The mayor, yes, I'm over certain departments. My duty is to execute. So if, they have authorized certain action, then my job is to execute it.
Sure.
And just the nature of the position, commission is a part-time position. These are folks that are working. They've got their day jobs. They've got their family requirements. They may have to travel. And I think what happened with this full-time position that's there all the time, the default became, well, what do you think? What do you think, law director? And instead of it, and a lot of times you would hear, you may have, this is just human nature again. The law director may have his or her own opinion on a particular topic.
I've heard commission.
And they have pushed the guidance in that direction according to their own personal opinion.
That, and I've heard commission lay it at the feet of the law director.
Yes.
And then the law director is not elected and needs first the legal advisory board, then 2/3 of commission. So even if you make a mistake or what have you.
Yes.
And then commission is like, oh, our hands are washed of it. We gave it to the law director. And the law director, whether they admit it was a mistake or don't, there's not really repercussions. So.
Well, you really build trust if you have, and I'm going to use the city of Clinton as a good example, okay? There's not a team of lawyers sitting there at their meetings.
Sure.
Their staff is carrying out their work. The council is voting on things, and then there may be times when legal counsel is needed.
Sure.
They consult with MTAS, or they'll call Mr. Cry or another attorney, and then they provide that answer to counsel. And I just think, I will say, I think this commission, you've seen them really do things a little bit differently, in my opinion. They've, and maybe it's just, with
lean heavily on the law director.
Yes, they're working with Mr. Brooks. He is, present. He's responsive, but they're not, I think, walking down that same path where it's just all about what the law director says they should do. They're really investigating. They're looking into these issues and
taking more responsibility for what goes on as opposed to. One thing you were talking about, we auctioned off some property, made a little bit of money. And I remember back when Mr. Queener was in there, Steve was in there, and I asked him this question. When you guys do that, he was going to try and advertise it with us, but legally it has to be put in, it states that those auctions have to be put in a paper. But would you ask when that happens for them just to let me know? They don't have to buy advertising. I would love to advertise that because I think people would,
Now, when we do, so if we auction properties that, I'm sorry, I've gotten into poison ivy and it's digging at my arm. When we do one where we have so we'll do one probably in the next few months.
Okay. I just like to put it on the news and let people know because I didn't know we had that one that you were just talking about.
Yeah, so we can advertise that.
Okay. Well, I'm offering it for free. I'll take the money, but I'm offering it for free just to let people know. But and another thing I want to ask you too, real quick, if we can do, any more banding about a justice center?
Ooh. I think so. The big obstacle there, Ron, is cost. We got a location. It makes sense. You will eliminate a lot of costs. And it's kind of like that animal shelter. We probably need to do a better job of really sharpening the pencil. I hate using cliches, but that is a good cliche. You got to sharpen the pencil and look at what the savings would be.
Yes.
unless the county builds up some more capital funds, I mean, I don't see us doing something where we say, oh, okay, we're going to raise taxes 8 cents in order to fund. Now, maybe there's a way to do one of the, private public partnerships where somebody comes in, builds a facility, you're doing some lease payments in order to work it into kind of like what we're doing with Claxton and the shelter. We're able to manage it with the existing funds that we have. But I think you've got to it's going to be, let me back up a little bit, getting ahead of myself. If we look at, for instance, the school, New Claxton Elementary, one of the things that Commission approved, which was very wise, was the existing Claxton school is going to be on a new 4-lane. By the time the school's built, you'll have I think they're talking about letting, is it 2029? I think the bids will be let for construction on Edgemore Road. That's going to be a very valuable piece of property. Mm-hmm. And what Commission did was pass a motion that the proceeds from that sale would go back into paying off Claxton Elementary. And I think if on a Justice Center, if we can structure, okay, what are the savings going to be? What can we offload? So for instance, you have a Justice Center, then Ron Meredith is going to buy the Jolly Building, lease it out.
You read my mind.
And put WYSH on the top floor overlooking the beautiful city of Clinton.
That's my goal.
That money would go into, so you'd have to have some understanding on the front end. Yeah, we're going to have a little couple years while we construct this, heavy debt service. But then we're going to sell this facility. It's going to go back on the tax rolls and generate this much tax. You're going to have private ownership. We're going to have the proceeds from that sale. I've said this many times. I really need somebody who can just sit down with me from an actuarial standpoint. And, my day differs. I mean, it may be a pig on the loose in the morning, and then I got a grant to submit, and I can't focus, Ron. But if I can sit down and get that, or get somebody to help me map that out, I think we can get it done. 911 is they funded a dispatch study. They're looking at, okay, if we do a joint facility, let's look at some locations. How do we take that on? That was included in the existing Justice Center. So if we take that out, that's a large number of square footage. How do we whittle this down to something that maybe is more manageable in terms of cost? But I 100% think it makes sense. And citizens hate coming in to our building and being checked they can't bring their little pocket knife in. And if we could get courts in the secure areas, in a secure area next to the jail, we could sell the buses and stop buying new buses and having extra personnel for transportation costs. Get the courthouse back to being your administration building where you come and get your car tags, and then you walk over and get a milkshake, and then you go pop in at Ron doing his interviews on the 5th floor. I mean, that would be true Mayberry for me, and optimal. I agree with you 100%. I think that would be fantastic if we could do that, but it would be an undertaking. I'm surprised really that, and maybe they have been, I'm surprised that people haven't already started reaching out about the Claxton property, because I can tell you firsthand, I was approached. It's not been that long ago, maybe 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, from a very large company that wanted across from the school, that corner. And I guarantee you, if they still, that company has changed hands since, but they were, I tried to piece together a deal to get all that property back where our old convenience center was. Yeah.
They wanted all back through there because they saw the value.
Yes.
So I'm surprised that it won't take long to sell that. I think I heard a price tag of $3 or $4 million or something like that, and maybe more or less, but that should sell.
And one of the things we're looking at there is, I think, Commissioner Wandell expressed concern too, like who would buy it, and that is a very good question. because you want to make sure that there are some kind of, I guess, agreements in place, Ron, that it will be developed. So you don't want someone to buy it and then it sits and becomes a dilapidated building for 20 years and an eyesore in the community. And so we're looking at what does the law allow. So if we just surplused it, it's just anybody and everybody, and you run those risks of somebody just sitting on it.
Yeah.
But there are ways to transfer it to like the IDB, where the IDB can say, okay, work with the county on what do you not want to see there? You know, I mean, within law, Ron, but like, do you want something that generates jobs? You know, and you can have some of this if development isn't accomplished within so many years, then it can be clawed back. The agreement can be clawed back or something like that.
That's going to be it's going to be a high retail area. It really will. And the company that approached me was gas station, food mart, you know, similar to like Weigel's. Well, I'll just tell you, it was Pilot. It was Pilot. I don't think I'm. It's been a long time ago, so I don't think I'm breaking any non-disclosure agreements. They were very interested in that corner and coming to that area. So
well, here's the other win on selling that. That isn't in any municipal jurisdiction. So whatever goes there, if it has a retail component, then the sales tax comes to the county. And so not only are you bringing in more money for that's split with the highway department and the schools. And so you're going to sell school property. If you put retail on it, they're going to be paying property tax that's split out all the various ways from the mayor's office to the sheriff's department, but the sales tax will go back into helping the schools and putting more pavement down. So, I mean, we want to sell it.
I think you will. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your estimate that we'll have a justice center in the next 10 years?
10 years?
Yeah. Think it's a good shot?
I think it's a really good shot. I mean, I think there is a true desire by the majority on county commission. There's definitely overwhelming agreement Ron, if we look at, we had to do a 20-year plan for addressing ADA issues. And the courts are kind of on the very tail end in terms of some of these fixes because of the sheer expense. If we look at just fixing a bunch of IT and electric issues in the courthouse in order to meet the future of the courts.
And security. Windows.
And ADA. I mean, but being able to consolidate, I mean, there's so much waste in, I point this out. We have in the Jolly building, juvenile court. Mm-hmm. And then you walk across the street and you have general sessions, chancery, and criminal court. So we have 2 sets of security. We have 2 sets of security personnel, duplicate, with only a street dividing them. That doesn't make any sense.
No,
I mean,
I agree.
And long term, that's real money. It may not look that much in this year's budget, like a one time. But let's add it up over 10 years.
Well, what about Oak Ridge? We've got a courthouse in Oak Ridge that I don't understand it. Norris don't get their own court. Rocky Top, Riceville, that's further away than Oak Ridge. Why don't we build one up there if we're going to pay for Oak Ridge? Because they don't want to drive to Clinton? I just don't feel like it's fair that I support that with my county taxes so they don't have to drive. You know, I raised holy Hades when we spent $1 million on a dilapidated building that was leaking before the roof was finished again. Can't support the heating and air structures that it takes to heat and cool it. And then we threw $1 million into it. And it was wasteful. I think it was wasteful. Or, I've argued with as many commissioners as want to argue with me about it. What would we save on that? And what kind of liability, what kind of risk do we put our sheriff's officers in hauling however many people they have to haul every day to Oak Ridge Court? Then they got to haul them all the way back and feed them lunch. Then they got to load them back up and take them back down to the courthouse in Oak Ridge, all for the convenience of not driving 8 miles into the city of Clinton. A justice center should be able to alleviate that. And I love Oak Ridge. I love Warren Gooch. He's a dear friend. But if they want court, then they should write a check and pay for the expenses as opposed to the county doing all of that. Well, my opinion.
Last night we had an intergovernmental meeting at 5:00. And Commissioner McCamey was there, and he made a presentation. And there is going to be, we don't have a date yet, because I assume Chairman Wandell is chair of that committee. I'm assuming he'll poll everybody about a date that works. But they are going to have a workshop on the Oak Ridge Court.
Fantastic.
And I know Commissioner Beauchamp sent out an email. She wasn't able to be at intergovernmental, but she has, all the stakeholders from mayor, commission, Oak Ridge representatives. She would like to just see multiple parties there. And so this is a topic that's going to come up, looking at some of the costs, the agreements, all of those things are going to be on the table for that workshop.
I think it would lessen the blow of moving it if we had a justice center.
Yeah.
And I think it also would give rise to, instead of just being a fiscal question, which is what I'm saying, it would be more of a safety question, combining resources question, everybody in one spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, we're funding this as a courtesy or as a convenience. Now, here we've got a brand new state-of-the-art facility. There's no reason for y'all to have to do that. You can drive down here.
Yeah.
Let me move you into one more place. This is maybe controversial. I don't know. It's still brewing. People are still talking about it. The books in the library.
Yes.
In public libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, well, there's nothing there now but the sleeves, and then they have to take the sleeve to the library and they decide if they could see the book or not. I referenced this a few weeks ago, May 8th or whatever it was, while school was going on. 2 14-year-old children caught having intercourse in the Clinton Library in that section. I've had commissioners tell me, in fact, some on the phone, that they didn't think that there was any, commingling of the two issues. I don't know. I've also had commissioners say, of course there's commingling when you're going to teach 8-year-olds homosexual sex and oral sex and all of this. How do you not expect them to do it when you're teaching it to them at such a young age or making it available to them? Where do we as a county overall stand? Because county commission gets 2 board members, correct? But library board members. And then each municipality gets, or do we get more than that? How many?
I can't remember on that.
I know that each municipality places them, and the county and county commission places them. But just, do you want to, if you want to comment on that personally, or as the mayor, or what have you, where do you stand on this? And have you seen the material that I'm talking about, or read it?
So I have seen some of the books. This has been a while back. So I can't even remember the titles. And that was at a time when I joined with some of the commissioners in requesting an investigation into the obscenity laws.
Sheriff
And there are, and this is District Attorney General Clark did a memo on one of the challenges with the obscenity laws in terms of, I guess, a trigger for prosecution, and there needs to be further clarity, in state law. And I do know that the legislature was working on that. I don't know if they have addressed that. I know they put in place legislation that deals with some of the school books. And I think,
Do you know that if I showed those pictures on TV right now, the FCC could take my license?
Absolutely.
It's obscene.
Absolutely.
By law,
Yes.
it's obscene.
Well, there's also, and I can't remember what the legal terminology is, Ron. There's also, I'm kicking myself that I can't remember the terminology, but there is a legal standard where what is not obscene for an adult may be obscene for a child.
Certainly.
And some of what I saw, okay, may not be obscene for me, but for a child, absolutely 100%. And I guess, first of all, from a moral standard, just me, Terry Frank, the person, I think that's wrong.
One of the books, Mary Frank, literally advised and gave instructions on how underage children could investigate pornographic sites online.
Absolutely. And how to edit their picture
so that
they could remove, identifying features.
Yeah, exactly.
And, that is, I'm going to boil this down. First of all, I question, if you're a civilized society, if you can't get a child safely from birth to 18. And I have no better word than creepy for adults who want to talk this way with young people. And that's just me.
I'm with you.
As a mom and a grandma. And if I got the neighbor's kids over, I've got a problem.
It's hard enough for me to have.
That's creepy.
When I had those conversations with my sons.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable enough that I can't imagine sitting down and discussing a book like that with a child that's not my son, or you know what I mean, or stepdaughter, or what have you.
Yes.
It's beyond me, and maybe I'm shallow, but it's beyond me.
And I think it's it's been many years. I took philosophy in college, and one of the classes was logic, and there are all these, logic fallacy terminologies like red herring and, all of that. But so I can't remember which one it is, but I do think this idea that it's book banning when you raise the issue of, is this obscene to put in front of a child? It's not about book banning. The book's still out. Book banning is, we don't want this book in society.
Yeah, we want
it's
it gone
Hitler
forever.
Throwing it with a bunch of people in piles and burning it. These are our public libraries, and they should be a safe space. There should be agreed upon community standards of what is safe. The expectation is there. And, when you send your child to school, there's also legal Latin terminology for, you have a duty to protect a child that is in your care at that time. And I feel the same way. You're the library staff, you're the board of supervisors for the libraries. You have a duty of care while those children are on your premises and while they're in the building. And so I guess what we're really arguing about is whether people think they're obscene or not. And we get into a lot of legal discussions there. And it's really not a legal discussion at the end of the day. It should be, that, look, Ron, their process is even based on some moral judgment. So you've got board members that some are voting that it's obscene and some aren't.
Yes.
So clearly there are some moral decisions being made there, some subjective decisions being made there.
Sure.
And that's why you see some of these ridiculous arguments like, oh, well, then we can no longer have
the Bible
I
had
in
a
there.
commissioner on the air say that the Bible could be considered, obscene. I almost said, well, you're not reading it, but anyway.
But the pictures I saw of sexual acts.
Mm-hmm. Graphic sexual acts.
Because it's a cartoon.
Because they drew it, yeah. Because it's
not
the Simpsons doing it, yeah.
even though it's very accurate and the physical is all very graphic and graphically depicted, but it's a cartoon, it's okay. No, not all cartoons are good, and there's a lot of grown-up cartoons out there.
There is.
So I don't know. I think they're.
My question is
still working towards. I mean, we've got the nominating committee has recommended Commissioner Val for the library board, and then I know.
And what was their reason for not nominating Anthony? Do we know? Because he seemed to be the person who has brought this to the forefront, who has led the charge. In fact, I've not heard Shane speak on it one time in my life.
Oh gosh, yes. So
I really haven't.
Yeah,
I know where he stands on it, but I have not heard him in a public meeting. I mean, he and I have spoke on it.
Yeah. So actually, I know the Democrat Party is circulating a video of him speaking at one of the library board meetings. Okay. He spoke on it at commission meeting. In fact, he was the one that he requested the investigation on obscenity.
You know, he has spoke about it here too. I hadn't heard that in a public forum. Well, I'm glad. I'm not for either or against either. Yeah. I just was curious because this was all brought, at least to my attention, by Commissioner Allen and some of the things he was bringing to the forefront. And I know he really wanted to. I know he put his hat in for that. I had him on here a few weeks ago too, talking about his relationship with libraries growing up. But that said, my question has always been, and I've got some very good friends that are librarians that head libraries and stuff, is that what would it hurt if it's not there? You know, if you have a child that is curious about something and they ask you, and especially something like that, you know, at that point, you could be a real help. You reach out to the family, to the parents, you say, your child came to us wanting this, you know, and then you hand it to mom and dad and let them decide at what age little Billy wants to, you know, experiment with whatever sex that he's talking about.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's right or not, especially with sexuality, to intrigue them. Yeah. You know what I mean? To encourage and intrigue that, you know, kids are going to have questions.
Well, you know, I remember years ago when Lee and I had a TV show, we had a parent who reached out to us. This is like, I don't know, 20.
I remember Let's Talk Frank.
Yeah.
You had a radio show too.
Like this, or maybe it was earlier than that. It might have been like 2008 or 2009. Her child was very advanced and had skipped grades and was an entering freshman at Anderson County High School. And the teacher had assigned for summer reading the book A Color Purple. And there is a graphic scene that begins the book. And the parent called the school and said, could I get a different book for my child to read for the summer reading? And they said no. And the parent went through the chain of command, was told no. You know, she explained, you know, my child is really, I don't think, ready for this. I mean, she's academically smart, but I'm not ready for her to be introduced to this. And so I encouraged the parent. She called in on Lee's TV show. I was on Lee's show at the time, and I said, why don't you call your school board member? If you can't get any results there, you know, call us back. Well, what ended up happening, Ron, is then it became public, and the teacher said they actually chose that book because they wanted to be able to discuss the whole Michael Jackson allegations and situations. Well, right then, Ron, you're the English teacher. Are you qualified? Can I see your resume that you're prepared to deal with these sensitive topics? Let's not look at it as a freshman, but you know, this age child. And anyhow, the parent was able to get a different book assigned. But that was all, you know, I'm all about, we have to be very cautious. We don't need to be a country of book banners. We need to expose ourselves in college. That's what my professors did. I learned the economics of communists and, Milton Friedman, free market.
But you were an adult, a young
Yes.
adult, but an adult that could process it more than a third grader.
Absolutely.
Or
But
even a freshman for that matter.
It would be nice if we could have a rational discussion. I mean, there's just so much accusation in, well, you're this because you've got a concern with this, or, you're a book banner, or you're a Nazi, or no, this is about the sexual development of children. And, each parent has an idea of what's that age I want to expose my child. And like you said, it's uncomfortable when you have the discussion. I mean, when we send the kids to school, I know all of my children had a
sex education class.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so
you had to sign off
on it.
You actually had to sign off on it.
Yeah.
But here, walk into the library and learn what may not be healthy behaviors.
I don't understand why folks feel the need to rob a child of their childhood. You know what I mean? They grow up too fast anyway.
Yeah.
Literally, kids are 13 or 14 years old are having sex. And, I mean, reading stuff like this. And I don't understand the good to come out of it. I really don't. They say, well, they need to understand. Maybe they're confused about their sexuality. They're 13. They're confused about everything.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the harm in not having it. And if somebody needs it and they ask for it and they need that kind of guidance or counseling, and then you serve as a conduit back to the family to help get whatever, or to a therapist or something to help get the child help. I don't necessarily think you go out there and go, if anybody out there wants to know how to have homosexual sex, here's how to do it. If you don't want to know, it's here anyway. You don't have to read it. I just don't understand where we as a country, or certainly we as Anderson County, feel it's necessary that we need to broadcast, push that, set it out there, and say, well, not everybody has to read it. They can see it, but they don't have to read it, because I'm going to tell you, there's not a kid in the world that, over time, given the chance, would deviate to go, hey, let's look at that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, so I don't understand it. And I'm not about burning books at all. I didn't even say take them out. I wanted them restricted heavily,
I totally agree with you.
I just don't think a child should. If a child wanted it, I think you should say, Mom needs to come in and Mom can have it. And then you guys can, or Dad, and you guys can go read it at home. But I wouldn't even let a kid check it out if they came to the front counter and asked for it.
Right.
So that's just me.
I mean, that's what policies and procedures are for. I will say this, back, I used to have a blog many years ago. I can't even remember what my blog was. Was it Frankly Speaking? I wrote for the Courier. I had the blog, but the blog was blocked in the Clinton Library.
Really?
It was blocked as a hate site. And it was conservative. Most of my stuff was about government waste. A lot of it was state of Tennessee. Some federal stuff. Very, very little local stuff was on the blog. I was mainly doing a lot of state stuff, following state legislation and things like that. But I had people tell me they could not. I had a member of the military tell me that he could not access my site. So
that's that. Therein lies the moral judgment being made.
Mm-hmm.
They can block a conservative site talking about fiscal irresponsibility because they want more money, but yet they can but yet they feel that it's okay to go completely to the other side of life, to a extremely liberal 13-year-olds ought to be able to know and do whatever they want to do, and here's the instructions on how to do it.
Well, it would be interesting to me to see, one of the things, and it's been a long process in working on the library structure, but really the library under law should have an executive director.
Agreed.
So you have your, the way it's structured is your board is your governing board, and you have a chairman of the board. Then the board chooses an executive director, and the executive director is responsible for all the staff, hiring, firing, the accountability. We have this system where they're county employees, and so there's all of this, you've got no authority, because the board is over the libraries. Yes, 100%. They're independent. That's what the state of Tennessee and statute envisioned, is that they are, their own governmental entity.
But they're appointed.
But then they're relying on us to employ them in order to pay, manage benefits, retirement, health care.
The people they put into place.
Yes. And so you get a lot of finger pointing. So, and I'm going to go back to COVID on this. During COVID, I had so many citizens complaining. The libraries were closed a lot longer than, Anderson County government never shut down.
I know.
We modified our systems of delivery, but we never shut down. And I had people who the library was their only source of access to their internet, to email. They did not have financial resources, and they could not get in the facility.
I remember.
And there was a lot of me reaching out to the state. I'm trying to figure out, how does this work? I didn't know I learned more about the library at that point in time than I ever had before. And, I was instructed, Secretary Trey Hargett, I even had a conversation with him. They're their own. They can set their own policies and procedures. They have all this authority.
But elected officials put people on those boards.
Yes, yeah.
And I really think elected officials need to take a long, hard look at that. I really do. And I think people of Anderson County should take a long, hard look at it. And I believe wholeheartedly in holding those elected officials accountable for it. If the parents of those two kids aren't pissed off about that, then I don't understand. I would be absolutely furious. In fact, I'd file a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I would have done everything I could to expose it to everybody. In fact, I did expose it, everything but names, and I would never do that. But I just don't understand it. I don't know why our elected officials are so spineless to not. I don't know. I just don't know why we don't address it heartily.
I think it's complicated, Ron.
And I didn't mean to call names. I'm sorry. I said that.
Well, you're operating in a very legal framework. And so I think a lot of the challenges are, you have so many different issues here, from the facilities to the funding to maintenance of effort to the books that are in the system to what activities are taking place, to parental guidance. It's just kind of one step at a time. I think they have made some steps to, they've got a clear review process now. I need to do more myself on this. I haven't gone in and inspected and looked. I know some were put on a restricted status. What would be very enlightening to me to know is, let's find out, let's not just look at, what we view as obscene and inappropriate. Let's also see what's not being put on the shelf.
I showed the pictures. I did. Yeah. I showed the pictures, and I said, if I get in trouble, I'm going to get in trouble. 100% of every single response said that is inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate even for an adult to be seen setting out on the get-and-go counter. 100%. Not either the people that thought it was cool not cool enough to call in and make it known and take a stand. Maybe they were out there and they didn't. But nobody, not one single person out of 50,000 homes that I'm direct wired into and 100,000 people that listen to our radio stations overall every single week, not one said it's a good idea to have that in our library.
Well, I can remember in the original Food City, when it was turned the other way, going through the checkout line, and even if your Cosmopolitan was a little racy, they put the paper wrap on it.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, there's this argument like, well, kids can get it on their phone and a computer. Okay, so that argument is two wrongs make a right?
Well, and
no,
you're not paying. I'm not paying for their phone. That's the other thing. My tax dollars doesn't buy their phone. So, I mean, if that's a mom and dad thing.
Absolutely, yes.
And, if we provided government phones for everybody, I would have a problem with it being on their phone then, too. But we don't pay.
Yeah.
But you're right. So they can see it here. So why not give it to them in the library? You're right. Two wrongs don't make a right. No matter.
Well, and I guess what I was saying is what other books. I would like to know what books are being donated what books are being donated that are not getting put on the shelf or that are being rejected, such as, something that has a different perspective or worldview. We don't really know a lot about what is going on in the libraries. And, maybe there could be a published list. One of the arguments I've heard is, oh, well, it was donated. Okay, well, what all has been donated?
So donation foregoes investigation of the book. If it's donated, then you don't have to vet the book. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm aware of one book that suggested a different worldview that was not placed in circulation, and so it would be interesting to have some transparency there and see is a particular agenda being pushed or a particular worldview being pushed, or is this a right or a left, or is this a faith issue versus no faith? I think if you get what does the list of books look like, you might get a little bit more. Are we truly being fair and upholding this idea of all views being presented?
No.
Or not?
I don't think right now.
And we're different. Everybody's got different views, but are we truly making books available that expose all views? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
People that listen to my radio station know that they know my opinions on things, and I voice my opinions on things. And so when you're talking about is there an agenda? I don't necessarily have an agenda, but I know I'm speaking to a lot of people. Now, with that said, I have never, in the history of owning the radio station, not let an opposing person have their entire say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never shut them down. There's not been a politician I've ran out of here or anything. And it's not that it doesn't make me mad, and it's not that I don't agree with it. It's that I just feel like people need to hear everything to make their own mind up. Yeah. They don't have to agree with me, and that's fine if they don't. I prefer that they do because I'm right. But
well,
I want them to. So I don't understand why we don't have that in the library board. I don't understand that.
I guess some of this. There's a balance on what's making a wide variety of views and materials available, and maybe the right word would be ethics, Ron. I'm trying to struggle with my language here. I think about some of the decisions even as mayor that I make, and it's, should I do this? Can I do this? And sometimes the appearance is also an ethical problem as well. So maybe legally I can do it. Okay. Legally I can take this action, but the appearance of it may not look proper ethically. So I'm not going to do it.
Understood.
Because everybody's going to think, everybody's going to think that the mayor did blah, blah, blah.
Understood.
Even though I didn't. I follow. And I think, that even with these books is if you've got a bunch of people that are expressing a concern that this is not appropriate, should you err on the side of caution in an area like this? I mean, this is complicated. I understand legally it's complicated. It's you remember the old obscenity case at the Supreme Court level?
Yes.
Well, I don't know how to define it. I think one of the justices famously said, but I know it when I see it.
Yes.
And, we have people going to the ends of the earth to say, well, no, it's not. But then in the same breath, they're also saying, but kids need to be exposed. They need to be taught this. They need to. So there's an admission at the same time. There is a defense of that it is not obscene.
Yeah.
You can't hold two positions there.
No, it either is or isn't.
So, and this is one of the discussions that took place about community standards. And, I don't know.
Well, in radio, in the Federal Communications Commission, they go by this same thing with community standards. If you go to New York and you listen to the Howard Stern show when it was on, you would hear the F-bomb on.
Yeah.
If that aired here, it would upset people because our community standards are different. And if somebody reported that, the Federal Communications Commission would look into the community standards of the area. And then if what I said or what was said breached those standards, then I would be reprimanded.
Yeah.
I would be pulled into line or what have you. If we put a book in the library about how to get away with murder, I don't know that that's necessary. We need anything. I just don't understand. I don't know how people can say, oh, we've got a book in the library about how to defraud the government with your through IRS taxes. Why? Would everybody think that's okay? They say, well, we need it because, there are people that do it. They don't think that would encourage someone to do that? Teaching, so I don't know why showing this, people don't understand that it's not just education. Sometimes it's motivation.
Yeah.
I really believe that. Sometimes I think they don't realize that you're encouraging behavior as
Ron,
opposed
there's
to.
a whole industry around rating systems.
I agree.
From music to video games to movies. There are warning labels
on
when you
TV
watch a TV show. Your closed caption says warning. Mm-hmm. This show depicts images of violence, sexual activity, blah, blah, blah. And for some reason, we act like we're just some kind of cave dwellers to raise the issue about the library system.
Yeah. Well,
I don't. Why? I mean, why is there a rating system for everyone else? But it's,
Well, I didn't mean to drag you down this
I just looked
hole.
at my watch. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
I didn't mean to drag you all the way down here. I really appreciate your time. I really
promise
do.
to come back sooner rather than later.
I
owe you a bunch of financial analysis on how far we've come.
I would love to have that, and I look forward to getting it because it's good news. I really believe that it's good news, and I've been here long enough to see the hard times, lived through the fights, the heavy political battles, yours and your folks before you, your predecessors. I think we're in a good place.
Ron, you have, from behind the microphone, flogged us to be better managers of our tax money, better planners, and we've still got work to do.
I've had a few good floggings from y'all, too.
You've been part of that. You have been part of that.
Well, thank you, Mayor Frank. I really appreciate you coming in. Appreciate your time. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I glanced up earlier, and I thought, we're going over, but I appreciate you coming.
Say a prayer that I get it all done.
Mayor's got to leave and write a grant because we're going to get about $500,000. Is that what you're working on, that grant?
Yes.
The $500,000 grant. Good luck. And,
all right.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Mayor Frank. Guys, have a fantastic day. We appreciate you listening.
Hey, folks, it's Jake from Rusty Wallace Key of Knoxville, and we're honoring America with patriotic savings all month long. Get $6,000 over KBB value for your trade, no matter the age, mileage, or condition. All month long, get $6,000 more than your trade is worth. Plus, every new Kia comes with our exclusive 200,000-mile warranty and 1-year complimentary maintenance. This July, we're celebrating red, white, and you at Rusty Wallace Kia of Knoxville, I-75 at Callahan Drive.
See dealer for details.
Hey, guys, I want to thank Mayor Frank. I want to thank you all for hanging with us. And again,